The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Going back to, we'll call it the cerveza sickness and the way the media really spun that. And I think they intentionally misled people. But, I remember one Forbes article that said, and I'm not even making this up, or I'm not even exaggerating this. They said that doing your own research was dangerous. And they were talking about how if you're doing critical thinking regarding, the cerveza sickness and whether or not you should get the medicine, or whether or not you should lock yourself in your house, or whether or not you should give this medicine to your kid, if you're trying to think through that on your own and do your own research, well, then you're literally putting yourself and your family at danger, because you should be delegating all of your thinking to the central planners and the authoritarians. And what you were just telling me there is that you did this radio show with people who really didn't realize pretty much any of the facts that a lot of people that follow you, or maybe follow me, or Brett Weinstein as another example, or Chris Martinson on Twitter, social media, the average Joe and Jane doesn't even realize this, because they delegated their thinking to the central planners. So if you could share with us your experience, and then maybe your view on kind of this bizarre phenomenon where the central planners in the media have actually encouraged us to not think at all.
Yeah, so these guys really were well-meaning. They were actually trying to get at the other side. And what I discovered is that they didn't know sort of level one of the alternative side. So I asked at the end, I said, who's on your podcast? They're gonna do documentary style, alternating around, I think, which is dangerous for me, because if they can take me out of context and make me look even worse. But I mentioned some names and they had not heard of them. And I said, tell me who's on your podcast. They said, oh, we're having the head of this organization, the head of this organization. I'm going, but those are all pro-vaccine guys. They're all pro-vaccine guys. And I said, they're paid to be pro-vaccine guys, and they will be unpaid to be anti-vax guys. So you're not going to get a straight story out of them. And they were a little sudden they'd lie. And I said, well, they're kind of, they're paid to believe. And if they can't believe, they can't do the job. And so it's sort of like working for Bernie Madoff or something, right? You somehow got to wrap your brain around it and accept it. So they were honorable, in my opinion. And by the end, their ears were pinned back to the sides of their head pretty hard. And I told them up front, I said, if you do interview me, you're going to get more than you bargained for. And at the end, the guy said, we got way more than we bargained for. So they'll piece out what they want. I gave them a couple names to talk to get the other side.
What's amazing to me is they tried to make it overly simplistic by just breaking it down to it's safe and effective. Okay,
a bumper sticker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well,
right.
What is safe? It's not to imply that there are zero side effects. I mean, that no one would say that. So how are you defining safe? And then, the conclusion that I always came to was, okay, yeah, for some people, the vaccine might make a lot of sense. Absolutely, if you're in a certain risk category. For a 15-year-old male triathlete, especially one that's already had COVID, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just, there's a different set of probabilities. The risk reward is different. And that was one of the first things that kind of opened up my eyes and said, wait a minute, the media is trying to mislead you here. They're trying to push this for a reason, because if they were truly concerned about health, they would encourage people to do their own risk reward and discuss this with their doctor. Because this is obviously, COVID is serious, but there can be other side effects. And for some people, COVID isn't as serious. And so, did these people that you were talking to, did they understand how the media just oversimplified things like that?
No, not at all. They thought, for example, towards the end, they said, they're talking about how there's all this disagreement. How do we resolve this? I said, well, the problem is that all the outlets are under control at this point. That absolutely every last outlet and people who try to go against the narrative. I said, did you ever hear a TV show like a Sunday morning show with 5 smart people sitting around the table talking about the vaccine? Did you ever hear one where they talked about whether it was good or not? Ever? And the answer is no. For me, the break point, I had learned to distrust Fauci pretty fast, but the break point for me was when they released the vaccine, and then within 1 week, we're pushing it to pregnant women. I said, okay, they're sick bastards. That's it. We're done. We are done. This is not about healthcare. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. So I told them, but to give you an idea where they were not, I asked them about the VAERS site. They didn't know what it was.
Oh, wow.
Right. And how many times did that hit your Twitter feed over the last year? Right. It hit my Twitter feed thousands of times. Right. So it's 2 different universes. Right. It's the people who are online having this gigantic cocktail party discussion, which is the way I like to think of it. You go and you find some people to talk to and you talk to them, right? You know, and or the people who are just sitting there watching TV and listening to talk radio and things like that. And if you're listening to Fox, you're hearing anti-vax shit, but it's not any more thoughtful. It's just it just happens to match up my sort of bottom line a little better, but it's not deep analysis. The best analysis I've seen recently was a Ukraine analysis by Scott Ritter. It was a great analysis of what's going on in Ukraine. You don't get those either, by the way.
Yeah, that's another thing that I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I don't see you and Chris talk about it. You were dead right, by the way.
You know, we were talking about them oversimplifying the what was going on with COVID, or the vaccines, excuse me, to just safe and effective. But now they've done the exact same thing, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, with Russia and Ukraine, and just setting this up as good versus evil. And it's like, right. Wait a minute, there's, yes, okay, Putin should not have invaded. You know, as libertarians, we're completely against that. But there's probably more to the story here than just good versus evil. And what I've been saying a lot on my videos is, listen, I don't like any of the politicians. I think they're all crooks. You know, Putin's a crook. I think Biden's a crook. Trudeau's a crook. Zelensky's a crook. They're all crooks. So to try to sit there and frame this as good versus evil, you know that there's something going on behind the scenes.
Right. And the way I stay out of trouble on political discussions, although I don't, but when I'm trying to stay out of trouble, is I figure out who the person I'm talking to hates and agree with them. and it works, because I can hate pretty much any of them at this point. So as soon as the Ukraine story booted up, I entered the story with an opinion of having gone through a bunch of Russia fake stories, right? Which included the Steele dossier sort of thing, and included Russians are rigging the election. Russians knew squat with these elections, best I can tell. I was front and center on the Skripal poisoning story, to the point where I was getting calls from Al Jazeera to do interviews and stuff. I did some RT interviews and some George Galloway, and because that was a total hoax. And the chlorine gas story in Syria was a big hoax. And demonstrably, right? This is just not me saying, oh, it's a hoax. You could show how it was a hoax. There's just so much evidence that built up against it. And so again, I had been watching Putin fairly studiously over the years, because what I'm impressed by is his ability to speak in a way that gets you, where someone will say something, he'll articulate his view, and you'll go, oh, that was good. It's not to say he's not a mean bastard. It's not to say he hasn't whacked people. It's not to say he hasn't taken out his political enemies. It's not to say he's not a dictator. But it is to say that he is very good at doing a gotcha when he's being interviewed. He's like Jordan Peterson of Ruski land, right? And so I had become rather impressed with his skills, not the person, not the humanitarian. And then all of a sudden, we're being told by everybody, that he's a mean madman. I'm going, I don't think so. And so the question that everyone should be asking is, give Putin some more credit. Why did he do it? And you have to get through the various bumper stickers. A, he's a madman. No, I don't buy it. It could be he's lost his marbles, but it's, in my opinion, that's not the best guess. The NATO story is a bumper sticker. I think it's correct, but it's too shallow to be worth anything. At just saying he's opposing NATO. The idea that he's trying to reassemble the motherland, down deep somewhere that might exist, but I actually don't think that's a particularly compelling story. I think the compelling story is that he has various geopolitical reasons why he can't let NATO have Ukraine. And he's been clear as a bell on that story for 15 years. And it's like you're married and your wife says, look, I don't care. Whether you get it or not, you can't do that. And you reach a point, you go, okay, I got it. I don't understand, but I got it. And so Putin said, you can't touch Ukraine. And for many, many years, we didn't touch Ukraine overtly, but we were poking. I just read a Rand white paper from 2019 that described how to poke Russia in the eye using Ukraine. They mapped it out in 2019. So I think Victoria Nuland, you want evil? It's not Putin, it's Victoria Nuland. She's evil. There's good and evil for you. She's evil.
Who is that?
And that's the woman who helped overthrow the previous head of Ukraine and install Zelensky.
Oh, this is 2014?
Yeah.